Our next speaker, I actually met at one of the very early social days. 2016, I think it might have been. We basically sat next to each other, a bit like you are, and it's like, oh, hello, who are you, you know, all that kind of stuff. But it turned out that we did very similar things. And I've witnessed her success grow from yet another marketer to someone who has an increasingly visible international reputation, who's, she's using that to improve the lives of thousands of businesses. Now, she keeps great company these days. She's always swanning around with Amy Porterfield and Mary Hyatt and Pat Flynn, Secco. But I am glad that I managed to get her here today before she was too damn expensive and unavailable, swanning around. She's the host of the Marketing That Converts podcast, which has some fantastic guests. We're talking A-list stuff, really. And she's launched her Marketing That Converts Academy recently as well. Now, when we discussed the session, because I do discuss sessions with everybody, we wanted to make sure that anything in this session is going to be applicable to any size business. So it doesn't matter whether you're a freelancer, an agency, you work in-house, this is for everyone. Because as I've said, ultimately, we are looking for leads and sales, and we're looking to convert. So, please give a huge warm welcome to our first keynote speaker, Teresa Heath-Wareing.
I've been to Marketing Live every year, and to be here for the third time is wonderful, but to be here as a keynote speaker, I am honestly honoured to be speaking to you guys today. And actually, I'm speaking about something a little bit different, so, we're going to see how this goes. You're going to bear with me, and hopefully, fingers crossed, it all goes well. So, I love events, but every time I come to an event, I think, man, I'm old. Okay, because we're in a digital marketing space, and everyone is super young. And I sit there and think, I've been in marketing now for 15 years. When I started marketing, my very first job consisted of sending fax campaigns. This was about how annoying email is. Can you imagine getting a 20-page fax marketing thing through to your fax machine and having to wait for those 20 pages to print out? Now that was annoying marketing. But I've been marketing for 15 years, but you know what? It's changed so much. The other day, I had the pleasure of going to a really big agency, and I was doing an interview for their podcast. And they told me that their average age of their employees is 26. And I sat there and thought, they're all going to sit on the carpet in front of me, and I'm going to tell them tales of marketing of old. And they're just like, oh wow, you didn't have these things? Because back in the day, there wasn't even digital marketing, it didn't exist. I remember having conversations 10 years ago with people saying, do we really need a website, or is that just a fad? And I remember having conversations 5 years ago of people saying the same about social media. So honestly, it is so very different to how I started. But the one advantage of me being a bit old and having worked for 15 years in marketing is I've worked with thousands of businesses. I have seen how loads of businesses have marketed themselves, what they've done, and I've worked with some of the most amazing and successful businesses. I got to be head of corporate marketing for Land Rover. Like, wow, from a marketing point of view, that was like a dream job. So, I get to work with these amazing businesses, I get to see how they market, I get to see what works, what doesn't work. And then I got to work with some goddamn appalling businesses who do terrible marketing, and obviously there's no way I'm going to tell you who those people are. So, I started thinking, what makes all these people successful? Why is it when we've got products and services out today, and especially in this digital marketing space, why is it that some people do really well and market and service their product really well, and other people, no matter how good their product and services, they just bomb and they don't do very well? And I wanted to try and work this out, because as time went on, I was working with more and more small businesses, and I wanted to help them try and work out a formula as to how they can market their business and how they can succeed at these things. So what was it? What was similar about all those different businesses out there that were doing a really good job of marketing their product and service? And I started to realise that these people had a really nice structure and funnel. So not just the structure and funnel for them, but also one for their audience. So they knew where they were going and their audience knew where they were going. So all these people that I've seen had this kind of funnel in place and it worked wonders. So I wanted to come up with something that I could help people and I could show people how to do this for their business. And I came up with my own, slightly scary, method and model, which I'm going to talk to you about today. This is its first public airing, so we're gonna see how this goes. So I came up with my own model and method that I wanted to be able to share with small business so they weren't overwhelmed, because we are in a world where there is no short of information. In fact, I'm amazed anybody in marketing still has a job, because you can Google everything. But I wanted to do it in a way that it was really simple and easy to follow. So I'm going to start off by showing you the model, and then we're going to go into the method. But if you've seen me talk before, you know I talk fast, and I cram in a load of information, and we're just at the start of the day, and I don't want your hands to be like aching before you've even got going. So there's a download. So at the end of this, I'm going to be able to give you details. You're going to get the download. It's going to have all that good stuff in there, so don't worry necessarily about trying to get all those notes down. So let's start with the model. So this is what I call the marketing that converts model, and basically I'm going to talk you through it, and then I'm going to go through a bit more detail, and then I'm going to give you real life examples. And I've chosen lots of different examples to try and help you understand how this works. So we start at the bottom. We're moving up, not down. So we start off at the bottom at your free content or advertising level. So most small businesses don't have massive advertising budgets. So if you don't advertise, you need to do content. So you've got to be doing one of those two things at the bottom. And the idea is at this level, you're sharing to the world something. So whether it's an advert you're putting in front of them or some content, you're basically saying out to the world, here we go, this is my stuff, do you want to engage with it? But how do you work out from all those people at the bottom who are watching your video or reading your blog or listening to your podcast, how do we get them to actually buy from us? So we need to give them something that I like to call a hand raiser, something that says to you, yes, actually, I want to take the next step. I am interested in the product and service you're offering, so what can we do next? Which isn't necessarily a money thing. So then we have the hand raiser content or some kind of opt-in. Then we move into the sales levels. And I want to talk to you about the sales levels because often, sometimes we have just one level of a service we offer, or we only try and sell one thing. And I want to try and just maybe open your mind to think about, could you offer varying service levels or varying price levels within your business to then open that out to more people? So for instance, if you're a personal trainer, let's say, and you're doing one-to-one work, what else could you offer for someone who couldn't afford to do the one-to-one work with you? Is there a way that you can offer something that can actually reach more people, maybe do a more of a one-to-many model that actually can still include your service? So then we'll talk about the different pricing, and it tends to be either the pricing goes up and it gets less people, or the frequency goes up. So, wrong button. Oh, have I done something? Oh, this poor, I think I've killed it. Are you going to do it? What should I do? Shall I shoot you a look at something? Like I've got a nervous tick. Okay. We'll give this a go. This could be interesting. Okay, so let's start off at the lower level. So at this level, this is your content. Like I said, if you're a big business, you've got a big budget, brilliant, because you're going to be able to have lots of advertising and that's great. But if you're not a big business and you need to try and get out to people, content is going to be the way that you do it. So here you have your blog or podcast or vlog, live videos, advertising, speaking. They're all really, really good ways of getting out into that audience and getting you seen. The next level is your lead management, your opt-in competitions and all that sort of thing. So this is those hand raisers. What are you doing from that step to that step to make them kind of reach out to you and say, yes, I want to know more? So offering a lead magnet is a great way to do it, especially if you're a small business. So just raise your hands. Anybody know what a lead magnet is? Oh, cool, good. Quite a few people in the room, which is awesome. So basically it's giving them something for free that they're going to want, but they have to opt in to get it. So it's finding their email address. So for instance, if I'm stood on stage talking about lead magnets, and I say I've got 20 lead magnet ideas, you're not going to opt in for that unless you really want it. You're not going to sit there and think, I have nothing to do with that, but do you know what? I'll just download that just for fun. So that's a great way of seeing that hand raising and seeing those people who want to take the next step. Then we start at the cost levels. So like I said, this tends to be a low cost tripwire or one-off, okay? So a tripwire is something that you're giving someone at such a price that it's like, that's crazy not to go for it. So if you've got a course online, let's say, or a product that's normally £90 and you give it them for 19, it's a bit of a no-brainer. And there's a psychology behind the fact that once someone has paid you once, the chances are they're much more comfortable doing it again. So giving them that really low offer and that tripwire to get them in the habit of actually handing you money and you then giving them something in return and them getting that trust is a really, really good way to start to turn them into a bigger customer. Then as we move up, this is where you get into multiple sales, or this is where you get into the higher price point. So you're offering a different level of service where it goes up a bit. And then finally, right at the top, this is either VIP, this is kind of one-to-one work, this is much more customized work to that person. So let's give some real-life examples, because I think that's really going to help you understand how this works. So the first example is me. I have chosen me as an example. Can you see that? So let's click again. Oh no. There we go. This is it. My glamorous assistant now. Right, Charlie. We're just going to do this as a team. Okay. So in my business, this is exactly how my business is structured and how it looks. And I'm going to tell you why you should follow the structure later, but for me, it just made everything so much more simpler to see, and I knew exactly where I was going with my products and services, and therefore my customers knew what was offered to them as well. So we start at the bottom, and my podcast is my content. So I speak and I do my podcast. That's the way I try and get my message out to the world. And then my next step, the thing I do, is I do lead magnets and content upgrades. So I'll be on the podcast, I'll be talking about something, and then I'll say, if you want to know more, I've got this download, or I've got this checklist for you. Then the next step up, my levels of paying are my academy, that's around $49 a month. The next level is more of a 90-day program where that's $2,000 for the 90 days. And then if you want to do one-to-one work, it goes right up and the price goes up. But obviously that makes sense, because if you want my attention and me sat in your office with you, that's going to be way more expensive than an academy level person. And what happens is, when someone comes to speak to you in your business and says, I really want to work with you, and you don't have a structure in which to offer them, you're kind of ruling out a load of people. So that's why I want you to think about, are there steps that you can put into your business so that you have got something to offer those people at those price points? So, Charlie. So I'm going to use an example of our lovely friends at Bonjoro. They don't know I'm doing this. So everything I found about Bonjoro, I literally found by looking at their site. So Bonjoro do blogs, they do sponsorship, and they do events. They're here. Ta-da! So that's obviously their way that they're getting out to the masses, and they're telling people, look, this is what we do. Their next step is they do free trials and they do a free version of their system. So that's how they're getting you to opt in. That's how they're getting you to raise your hand and say, yes, I will potentially use your service. Then they've got 3 levels of pricing. So again, no matter what size person or business you are, you're going to be able to choose something that fits. Now, obviously, if you're on the essentials, you're not going to get the one-to-one service or the more customised service that you're going to get at the high level. But there is something to offer everyone at every step. I'm not going to attempt to say the one in the middle. The growth. I tried to practice it. It didn't work. It's not my thing. So let's look at a company we all know about, Amazon. Because I wanted to show you this wasn't just in the knowledge industry. This isn't just freelancing. This can work anywhere. So Amazon, they don't need to put content out. I haven't read a blog from Amazon, I don't know about you, but they're not doing a podcast every week because they're Amazon, so they can advertise. They've got big budgets. So their brand awareness piece at the bottom is just advertising, sponsorship and PR. So it's a really good way of just getting that message out to everybody. The next level up is they do things like obviously search results and SEO and Google AdWords. So their hand raiser is a little bit different. It's not an opt-in hand raiser. It's a you click and come to our site and then we can remarket back to you. So they're still getting access to those people who are really stepping forward and saying, yes, I'm interested, but it's in a different way to how we might do it. And then as we go up, you've got one-off purchases, and they start suggesting products to you. So, oh, you bought this, you might want this. They then got your email address, so they can then go, oh, we've got this product and this product, based on the thing that you bought just that once. And then they start trying to move you into the next level, which is more frequent. And they do things like they have a nominated charity. So you can, every time you buy something from Amazon, doesn't matter how sporadic it is, they will give a percentage or a certain amount of money to a charity that you've nominated. So that's a really nice add-on that makes you want to shop more frequently with Amazon because they've added on that little bit. And then right at the top, my saviour, Amazon Prime. If I'm buying anything online, no matter where it's from, I go back to Amazon, I search it on there, and I want it next day. Even if I don't need it next day, I want it next day because I'm an Amazon Prime customer and I've got next day delivery. And that's how they make the most frequent buyers from us, because they added that value. They somehow came up with a product to add on to then buy another product. So it seems like a crazy concept, but they did it and they made us VIPs. They made us love Amazon and want to buy from them more and more and more. Some of the reasons you're going to follow this model, some of the reasons you might want to follow the model. So it gives you that clear structure, so it gives you those steps. So I can be really clear. When someone says, I want to work with you, I'd be great. I've got 3 ways, these are the ways. It gives you a clear path for you to see, but also for your customers to see. Pricing at all levels, which is great because it opens you up to a much wider audience. It's easy to communicate. So you go to my site, you go to work with Teresa, and there they are, 3 different levels. You can see immediately what you get. Keeps you focused in your marketing, we're going to go on to that, and it helps manage people's expectations. So when they see that you've got a level of service here and a level of service here, they're not going to expect that service level for that cost, because they can see that you've got steps in your business. So what about your business? And I want you to sit there and think about it. And I want you to think today, and if you get the download, I want you to fill that out and think about, have I got something at varying levels I can offer? Have I got that base thing that I'm doing, and how am I getting them to raise their hand? Because often we miss that bit out, and we expect them to go from listening to a podcast or reading a blog and buying from us, and it doesn't work like that. So this next set of slides are going to help you with that. This is the method. So now I've talked to you about the model and how I would suggest that you look at structuring the business. Now how are you going to actually do that in your business now? So this method is super, super simple. I like simple things. My life is busy and complicated enough without having to try and work out really fanciful things. Like I said, I did a degree in marketing, and I went through a whole phase of my work career where you had to speak the big fancy words all the time because that impressed everybody. And now I'm not interested in the slightest. Let's keep it simple and easy. So we've got get seen, get emails, get sales, get fans. And you know what? The last bit everybody forgets about, because they're so concerned with trying to get people to sell to, and they're trying to sell to them that they then forget the minute they bought. And actually your fans feed back into the fact that you've just got seen. So your fans are going out there and telling the world, oh my God, go check out so-and-so stuff, they're amazing. You know, your fans are talking about your products and services. Okay, so a few basics before you get started. Now you're going to think, Teresa, you're mad. We're at a marketing conference, we're obviously into marketing, and you're telling us, what are you offering? But like I said, when did you sit down and look at those service levels? And actually, you know what happens all the time when I sit down and consult with people? I'll say, what is the thing you're offering? And they struggle to tell me. And it's like, if you're struggling to communicate to yourself what you're offering, your customers have got no hope in hell of ever knowing and ever actually buying. So you have to be super, super clear, these are the services I'm offering, this is the product I'm offering. The next thing you need to know is who's your customer. If you've seen me speak before, you'll know I talk about this an awful lot. Often we don't really get to know who our customers are. We're not diving super deep. And I don't just mean, are they male or female? How old are they? I mean, where do they shop? What do they dream about? Where do they go at a weekend? What are they watching on Netflix? And the thing about the marketing we're in today is we can find all that stuff out. It's amazing. So I want you to understand who your customer is, and then obviously you're going to want a brand and some nice pretty pictures around it. So let's talk about these get seen. So the first thing in the get seen section is that customer knowledge, so knowing who your customer is. And then from there, we're looking at things like how we're creating awareness. Because again, this is like the first step. If you're not doing stuff to get seen, so if you're sat there thinking, well, I don't really do a whole lot of advertising and I haven't really got any content that I'm putting out there, then what are you doing to get seen? Now I've got a load of ideas for you, and they can be some of the cool old school stuff, which, you know, being in marketing a long time, I remember those things. But what are you actually doing in this box? Because if you're not doing something, then you're going to have a hard task trying to convert anybody else. So you're trying to get that awareness, you're going to use a range of medias, and you're going to create content in that box. Then we're going to look at the get emails. How are you going to get them to raise their hand? What are you going to offer them in order to try and convert them, not just onto your email list, although I am a big fan of talking about this, because we don't own social media. Social media is lovely, and I love it, but tomorrow, if I was to break the term and condition, and suddenly Twitter went, you're out of here, I've lost all those followers. So even if you aren't really putting all your efforts into email marketing, to still have them on your email is still super, super important. Go deep through content. Like I said, content upgrades through a blog post, through a podcast, through a blog is a great way of finding those people. And then create your list. And then we start looking at the sales. So how do we nurture those people when they're on the list? And we're going to talk about lots of ideas. How do you know what your customers want? Because the great thing is, you've profiled your customer up there, but as you start to bring them into the funnel, and I'm saying funnel in a loose sense of the word, but as you're bringing them into this process, you're going to be able to get to know them even better. And once you sell to them, you're going to be able to literally go, who are these people, and really find out your customer base. And then we're going to look at, like, you know, this is where you might do sales copy, this is where you might do sales emails. And then finally, how do you delight your customers? How do you love them? How do you cross-sell and upsell, make them brand advocates? And how do you make them part of your community? So we're going to look at that as well. So I'm going to go through in more detail. Like I said, you'll get these on the downloads, but feel free to take photos. So we have no shortage of things that we can do to get seen. And you know what? That is half the problem. Because we sit there and we're like, oh, I really should do that blog, and I really should do that blog, and I really should do this, and I should do on every platform, and I should do this. And it's totally overwhelming. It's exhausting trying to do it all. And that is the one thing that I hear people say all the time, that I'm overwhelmed with what I should do. So the key thing here is picking the good stuff, picking the stuff that you want to do. And you'll see an example in a bit. But like I said, here there's a million things. Every social media channel's on there. You can do a blog, a podcast, live videos. You've got different things like content, Facebook advertising, copywriting, display ads, networking, printed material. I still like the printed material thing. And in some cases it's still very necessary. There's so many things that you can do in order to get seen. So it's one of those things that you're going to do. And I want you to look at this and think, what am I doing? Out of those, what can I tick off? Then how do you take them to that next step? And often this is the one people miss. They're doing the get seen and they want to jump in straight to buying. But you need to warm them up. I like to liken it to old school where you went networking, okay? So if you went networking and you walked into a breakfast meeting and somebody said, oh, there's Teresa over there, she does so-and-so. So that's been seen, I've just been seen. If I walked immediately up to them and said, hi, I'm Teresa, do you want to buy my, do you want to come into my account? They'd think I was an absolute loon. So you can't do stuff like that. You've got to warm them up. But I think people think on social media and digital marketing that we don't have to do those things, and we absolutely do. So we've got things like chatbots. Again, Mr. Fiscal's very good at that sort of stuff. We've got lead magnets, content upgrades, newsletters. Just quickly on the newsletter thing, when you ask people to come onto your newsletter, when you ask them to give you their email address, I always get that the wrong way around, why? Why are you asking them to do that? What is it you're giving them in an email that you're not giving them somewhere else? So my email, if anybody subscribes to my email, you'll get my weekly ramblings of something or another, but you won't get the thing that's on the podcast, you won't get content that you see on stage, you'll get something entirely different. Because I see that as different content, because why do I want you to come onto my list? What am I going to add there? So think about that when you're asking people to opt in, what are you asking them to opt in for? So like I said, landing pages, CRM systems, thank you pages, discount codes. So often when you're a product, people think the hand raiser thing is harder. It isn't. Things like competitions, codes, offers, they're great ways to get hand raisers, great ways to go, yeah, I'm interested. And then things like free trials, automation, obviously you saw what the guys at Monjuro do. Great way to identify those people who are saying, yeah, I might actually buy from you. So once you've got their email, we're then looking at their sales. So what are you doing to sell? And you're going to think this is crazy, because we all have products or services, and marketing, that's kind of the main job, that we're going to market to actually sell a product or service. But you'll be amazed at the amount of people who don't do this very successfully. So again, I sat with someone, a coach, and I was like, so what do you want? She's like, I offer 3 levels of service, I do this, I do this, I do this. I was like, brilliant, wonderful. And I went to her site and I'm like, that doesn't tell me anywhere that you do that. Literally nowhere can I see that you do that, those 2 services. Because she wasn't direct enough about speaking about it. And I like to say with love that sometimes online we're a bit stupid and a bit lazy. Because we are so busy and we are being bombarded by so many things that we need you to tell us really directly. I don't want to second guess. I don't want to have to try and think, oh, do they mean this? They're going to offer this? Or do they do this? I want you to be really clear, absolutely abundantly clear with me. These are the things I offer. These are the prices I offer them at. Do you want them? So have a look at how you're actually selling. Are you being that direct? And it doesn't have to be being sleazy and horrible and yucky at all. It's just about being really open and honest. As Visible said, I do a lot of stuff in the States, and they have a really interesting way that they look at this. What I find interesting is us in the UK may not feel that we're as confident to do this, but they said to us that imagine your customer is out in the middle of the ocean and you have the life raft or you have the whatever it is to save them, and you're like, oh, I don't really want to ask them because like I might annoy them, or if I send them another email saying you want to buy this stuff, they're going to be like, oh, you shut up and on about it. And actually we're doing them a disservice if we're not saying, I've got something that will solve your problem, would you like it? So I think we just need to be a bit more direct when we're asking these things. So again, we've got things like meetings and cart abandonment and sales emails and testimonials and case studies. So again, look at that. How many of those things are you actually doing in order to try and tip those people over into the sales? And then my favourite bit, how do we delight and nurture and love the customers we've got? So can we do things like build that community, do customer satisfaction, targeting, more personalised stuff, and I love that. I love the fact that when you get into a certain level, that you might have a more personal experience because of the fact that you spend a bit more or because you're a more frequent buyer. We can be targeting, we can add value, cross-sell, upsell, and delight. So let me give you those real-life examples again. So more than happy to share my business. So this is exactly what I do today in my business in order to get myself seen. And it doesn't look very much, does it? It looks like I hardly do anything. But you know what? I am so focused on those things that I do nothing else. I'm not overwhelmed. I'm not confused. I don't sit there thinking, I should do a vlog. I definitely think I should do a vlog. It might cross my mind for a millisecond, then I'm like, but I don't do vlogs, I do a podcast. So let's put all my attention into that. So literally right now, I do my podcast, I speak, I go on other people's podcasts, and I do every social media. I wouldn't recommend that you do every social media if that's not something you can manage. I recommend that you do what you can manage. But obviously, I'm in digital marketing, I have no choice, I have to do social media. Then in the get emails, I do content upgrades, I do lead magnets. If you were to head to my site right now, you would see 3 lead magnets, centre of my page that says, do you want to know how to create a sales page, a webinar, or get more emails? No one is downloading those lead magnets if they're not interested in more of what I have to say. I do content upgrades on the podcast, so again, I'll do an episode where I'll talk about something, and then I'll say, oh, by the way, I've created this for you, and they can go and download it. Then sales, I do webinars. I love a webinar, and as granted, they're not as successful as they were, but they still are pretty good. But for me, because I teach, and because I like to be in front of people, but it's nice to hear again. But because I like to teach and be in front of people, then webinar works perfectly for me and what I offer. I do sales pages, I do sales emails. We're going to look at this a little bit in terms of that's not going to work for everybody, and I don't expect it to. And then the fans. So when people joined my academy, I hand wrote cards to all of them, personally me, no one else. I went onto their Facebook, I had a look at what they do in their service and what their business is, and I tried to write something along the lines that would show that I paid that interest. And it took time, but you know what? People weren't expecting that, and when they got it, it cost hardly any money, just cost a bit of effort, and the value that I added on top of that was huge just by taking that one little step. And obviously I've tried to do things like targeting and delight. So again, when I opened the academy, I said that they get one coaching call a month, and we've been doing 2 because I want to give them that extra bit of value. Okay, so meet my lovely friend, Mary Hyatt. Mary is a life and business coach. And I wanted to talk to you about how she does it because it's a little bit different. So Mary did a brilliant thing that I just had to share it. Mary has a YouTube, an Instagram, and a podcast. Mary's hand raiser was getting people to DM her into Instagram. So what she did is she used the question thing on Insta Stories, technical term. She asked a question and she got people to pick which one they were. When they picked, obviously alerted to her, she DM'd them saying, why do you feel like that, or why is that the case? She was trying to sell a group coaching program. It was like $3,000 and only 10 people, so it's a fairly high-touch, high-price item. So when they DM'd back saying, oh, this is the reason, Mary DM'd them back and gave them some value. So she said to them, hey, you want to read this book? There's this podcast, there's this episode here, there's a blog. It will really help with the thing that you've got, that you said you've got an issue with. Then what she did is when it came back and was, oh, great, brilliant, thank you, Mary. She then sent them a video and said, hey, listen, I'm just wondering, I've got this thing that I think you might be interested in, really totally unsalesy, very natural, to camera, as she would send any video message. Would you mind if I sent you some more details? Are you interested in it? And they said, yeah, great, send some more details. She emailed them through some details, and she put them on a 30-minute call, and she sold to them. And she sold out within literally the first 10 calls she did, because she took that personal approach, because she took that, and as this was Paul was saying before, actually slowing down and deciding that at that level you can do that. If she was selling a product for $20, I would probably say, man, that's a bit too high touch for a $20 product. You might want to think about that process. But then obviously once she got into actually getting them onto the coaching group, she then obviously did things like she made it more personal to them, she civilized them, and she did her thing that she's good at, and obviously they got results. I want to give you a completely off-the-wall different example, a bit like the Amazon one, because again, I know there's lots of businesses in here with different things, and I want you to see that this can work for you. So this is Rackham Castle. It's a beautiful wedding venue, not far from where I live, and this is what they do. So you'll see instantly in their Get Seen, they are doing a lot more, but that's easy because they have a team and they have a big budget. If you don't have a big budget and you don't have a big team, then don't sit there and think, oh, I should be doing the website, the blog, the SEO, the Facebook, the Google AdWords, the third-party sites, and all my social media, because you'll literally run yourself ragged. I'd rather you do just 2 or 3 things that do them really well. So they do all of that stuff. They have things like brochure downloads. No one is downloading a wedding brochure that doesn't want to get married, unless you've got a lot of time on your hands. So they obviously, that's a really good lead magnet for them. That's a great way of seeing those hand raisers. Because like I said, they're not doing it unless they want to actually plan a wedding or are thinking about getting married. Then they do things like website sign up, and they do lead magnets. So 10 things that you need to think about when planning a wedding, 5 things to make sure that your day runs smoothly. So again, they're not in the knowledge industry, they're trying to sell a product, but again, no one is downloading that stuff that isn't interested in the fact that they're going to get married. Then on their Get Sales, this is where I said it's a bit different. They're not doing a sales page, they're not doing a checkout in a car, they're not doing cart abandonment, because that obviously doesn't work. Weddings at their place, I'm going to guess, is about 15 grand, because they're a hire the whole venue thing. So no one is going to complete a purchase through a sales page. No one is going to do a quick cart thing and just buy online. That is never going to be the case. So obviously for these guys, they have to do things like open days. They have to physically meet the people and sit down in front of them and have a conversation with them. They have to do things like have attendees that come to the wedding, and then they sit down and have conversations with them as well. So their sales process is a lot slower and a lot more in depth, but their cost per person, or their cost per when they sell something, is huge, so therefore absolutely worth that while doing that. And then when they get into the fans section, they do things like they delight them through sending them anniversary cards. And I love this, because they're not doing it to get another sale, because hopefully they're not going to get married again. And if they do get married again, I'm not sure how the new bride and groom's going to feel about going back to the place they've already got married at. So they're not doing it to try and get another sale. They're doing it to give them that love, to give them that extra little thing. I've got estate agent clients who do exactly the same. So on a year anniversary of moving into a house, they send them a card. And it's nothing, it's not expensive, it's not lots of effort. It's just like thinking, just a little bits of add-on. How can you just love those people a teeny bit more? So a few things for you to consider when you're doing this. So the first thing is you have to choose what fits with your audience. There's no good you saying, sorry, I walk across this every time you go to take a picture. You can have like half my head in. So you're going to have to think about what's fitting with your audience. So if you said to me you're doing business to business and actually I'm going to go all in on Snapchat, I might say you might want to think again. So obviously, what's going to fit with your audience and the people you're talking to? The next thing to do is what fits with you. Because content creation and marketing is tough. So if you're not doing something you love, if you're doing something that you find an absolute chore, which is why I don't do a blog. Because if I had to write a blog, I would never do one. That's why I do a podcast, because I was told for a million years that I speak a lot. So that works really well when you're doing a podcast. So obviously do the things that fit with you and fit with your audience. Content is a must. Unless you're Amazon or a really big business and you've got a good marketing budget where you can just do brand awareness stuff, then content really, really is a must. You really must do some stuff out there. Then consider your price point. So remember what I said. The rag parcel, the wedding venue, they're not going to send you to a checkout page and they're not going to go click on that, click that, and buy. Their process is going to be much, much longer. But in the same breath, the other way around, I don't want you doing one-to-one meetings when you're selling a service that's £50. You know, I want you to think about that level and what they expect, because often what happens is if you're selling a service at £50 and you have a meeting with someone, then their expectations are going to be through the roof. They're going to think they're going to get way more for that £50 than actually you want to give. So manage that through that process as well. Can't see again. And then the beauty about the world we live in now, very different from my days back in Land Rover, where we would spend thousands and thousands on adverts, and they'd go, did you sell any cars? And I'd like, I don't know. Because actually we couldn't tell. The beauty of what we do now is we can review and tweak. We can see how it goes and change it. But one thing that you must do is be consistent. And I want to just tell you a little thing about consistency. When I started my podcast, my assistant said to me, how long are we doing this for, Teresa, until you decide that this is a success or not? And she was thinking I was going to say 2-3 months, and I said, I'm going to do it for 12 months. And anybody out there's got a podcast, they're amazing and they're brilliant. But there is a bit of money that you have to pay. It does take a little bit of a while to actually record the podcast, so it's not like the lowest effort thing. So she was like, 12 months. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to be consistent. I'm going to show up every day, and I'm going to see what happens, because I tell everybody else to be consistent. I must be able to do it myself. So for the podcast, I did it. For 9 months, it did this. And it ticked along, and it rose a little bit every single month, but it literally ticked along. Got to month 9, I did nothing different than what I had done the previous 9 months, and it suddenly shot through the roof. Like, literally outweighed every other month I'd ever seen from nowhere. And all I can put, it was that consistency. It was like a snowball effect. It took that time to build and build and build, and then suddenly everybody started to hear about it, or a lot more people, not everybody. So, you know, a lot more people started to hear about it, and then suddenly that went up. But it took that consistency. Imagine if after 3 months or 6 months I'd gone, no, it's probably not working. I'll probably just give it a miss and leave it. But I didn't. I kept going, and literally right at the last minute, it proved to me that it was worth doing. So the consistency is super, super important as well. So, again, I want you to think, have you got something in every single one of those boxes? Are you able to confidently sit here and go, okay, get seen, I'm doing this, this, this. In the hand raiser, I'm offering this, this, this. In the sales, I've got this. To love my customers, I'm doing this. Because I want you to think about that, because if you're not, then you need to look for those gaps, and you need to look where you're going to fill them. Because trying to get someone to jump from getting seen into sales is hard. Trying to offer someone a lead magnet when they don't even know you exist is hard. So trying to take those steps is a really natural, easy way to go through it. So I really hope that you've enjoyed hearing about my 2 new models that I've created for this and other things, and I really appreciate you listening to me. As I promised, there is a download. If you head to teresaheathwareing.com/ml for Marketed Live, then that download has everything in it. It has all the different slides and all the different things. So please go ahead and take that there. And as Chris Paul said, I would love to hear your feedback. I think all the speakers would, in terms of what you think of the stuff, so please do come and find me. Thank you so much and have an amazing day.